All right. Hello and welcome everyone to another live episode of Calling All Real Estate Investors with Caeli Ridge from Ridge Lending Group. As always, you can reach us at info@ridgelendinggroup.com or call in at 855-747-4343. That is 855-74-RIDGE. And during today's live call, if you have any questions throughout, please just pop those into the chat and then we will answer them as soon as possible. Today, we have a very special guest speaker joining the podcast, Brent Widman. And I'll hand it over to Caeli to get his introduction to you and to dive into today's episode.
Thank you, my dear. Hey, gang. Happy holidays, squad. Let's see. How many do we have on? Well, it doesn't really matter. Thank you for joining us on this Tuesday. I always love seeing you. I think we've got one more episode for the year, right, Carly? It'll be a pre-recorded episode. Maybe at the end of this, you'll remind me what the content for that is so we can hook them. But thanks for taking your time. Appreciate you guys being here. Just briefly, we're going to be doing something really different today. I'll get into that in a second. But before I do, I wanted to make sure I've got it in my notes to tell you, or for those that missed, the announcement that we made last week. Just some housekeeping. I always like to start with that. The second lien HELOC, home equity line of credit that we had talked about maybe a month ago. You probably remember me mentioning that it might be a little bit limiting at a 60% CLTV, right? For those that remember that. Second lien HELOC, we had just brought it on as a new product line, 60% CLTV. Guess what? 70% CLTV, second lien HELOC for non-owner occupied properties. This is a pretty big deal, guys. I have not seen a CLTV to 70% on an investment property since probably before the pandemic. So two things. One, yay. You now have, for those that thought maybe it wasn't going to be a good fit or it just wasn't worth the squeeze, didn't make sense. Now it might at the 70% CLTV for you. But also, I think that it is a sign of the times. I think that the tides may be turning. We'll talk about that probably next time we're together. But that's good news all around. 70% CLTV. For any of you that had us run numbers for you before and the 60% was kind of meh, make sure you reach back out to us, info@ridgelendinggroup.com, or check in with your DLS and have them rerun the numbers at 70 just to see how much difference it makes. It could be all the difference in the world. And that second lien, remember, is what all of you have been kind of berating us to come up with, because nobody wants to give up their 3% and 4% interest rates. So there you go. You're welcome. Merry Christmas. All right, so let's get into this. I've wanted to shake things up a little bit on our live with Caeli Tuesday calls. And so I'm going to try something a little bit different, quite different, actually. Obviously, we spend our time talking about real estate, more specifically the financing side of real estate. And while this has nothing to do with that, I think it fits a need, and it was very personally timely. This is as much for me as I hope it is for you. Before I introduce our guest today, I wanted to share with you guys the why behind this, my why, and why I thought that this would be a good idea to bring to our Tuesday meetings. So I wrote something out, and I might paraphrase here, but here's where it's coming from. I find myself in a conundrum as I kind of ease into middle age. I will be 52 in January. I've spent my entire life as kind of a high performer. I just always had that kind of fire in my belly. I was always able to kind of turn it on, and whatever the goal was, kind of stay focused, put my head down and achieve it. And I've always had pretty ambitious, high-reaching goals. And for the most part, I could get there without, well, okay. I could make up my mind and I could do it. That's not to say that it didn't come with a massive amount of work, brain damage, blood, sweat, tears, all of that stuff. But I was overall able to kind of figure that out. And I think more than anything, my skill set, or what really got me there, what I was kind of naturally born with, is consistency. I could just put on the blinders, keep my head down, barrel through, gut it out, grind it out, and I could get there. And the consistency above all else is what I found personally is probably the number one key to my success. And I think that if you've read any of the self-help books or whatever, whatever you're into that kind of gives you that inspiration, you probably have heard once or twice that consistency is up there at the top of what you need to apply to reach said goal. That has been true for me. But, I've noticed, this is a more of a recent phenomenon. I've noticed that something's missing. I feel stalled. I feel like there's a plateau that I've hit, and maybe it's complacency. Maybe I've gotten fat and lazy. Maybe, I mean, who knows, whatever it is, but I'm missing something. And I still feel, that fire in my belly. I know that I could still garner it if I want to. It's a slump maybe. So this, like I said, very timely, and coincidentally, so for the last year or so, this is a new phenomenon for me, and kind of lacking some of that inspiration. A mentor of sorts, I guess, or someone that I just respect immensely, made a recent introduction to Mr. Brent here. After checking him out a little bit, I thought, what perfect timing, right? This time of year, right, where we're finishing out the year, et cetera. And, everybody kind of uses that as their, I don't necessarily do the New Year's resolution things, but a lot of times it's a reset. Fine. So I thought this is timely. It's the holidays. Maybe people don't want to be talking about interest rates and that kind of stuff again to close out the year. And I could use a pick me up. So I have asked Brent to join us today. I think that this is going to be useful from a variety of perspectives. I know for me, I'm going to be able to take, I assume, kernels from what he's going to share and pick myself up by the bootstraps again and get back on track. So that's what today is. Where's my cheat sheet for Mr. Widman? Here it is. So let me properly introduce this gentleman. I am pleased to introduce Mr. Brent Widman. Brent helps run Southwestern Consulting, which is a speaking, training, and coaching division of the Southwestern family of companies. Brent is a partner that helps lead a group of 155 certified professional sales and leadership coaches around the world. He has been with the 165-year plus Southwest family of companies. He's been there for over 10 years with over 18 years of sales experience himself. He is consistently in the top 5 for sales and revenue for the company, and he took the #1 spot in 2021. I think that's probably was a pretty big accomplishment, man, given how many people I think in that company. He's a marathoner, a mountain climber, and loves any type of exercise. But mostly, Brent is about growth, all about growth, serving others and having a great time while doing it. Lucky enough to be married to his wife, Jenny, and also dad of 3, Jack, Ellie, and Hud. Great names. So he's here to join us. And I believe his goal is to try and impart goal training principles, inspire us with habit-changing ideas. I'm excited to hear what he has to say. I thought, Brent, with your permission, we could just kind of do a Q&A. I set up a couple of questions that I might throw at you, and then you just do you, and we'll just keep it light, like I mentioned earlier, and just have a conversation. What do you think?
That's perfect. I love it.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Thanks for the intro. That's exactly how I wrote it. So you did a great job.
There was a few things just to keep the flow. I changed a comma here and there. But thank you for taking the time. I appreciate this. I'm excited to hear what you've got to say. So here's my first question. Okay. I would like to know about your background, right? What happened in life to get you to this point? You've been in sales for a long time, but tell me about you and how you got to this place.
I'm going to say one thing before I answer that. Is that all right?
Yes,
I just want to say thank you. What you just said and your humbleness about sometimes we do get stuck or we get complacent or it may not be complacent, but we just kind of do.
Yeah.
And we don't know how to get out of it. And there's not a lot of top people. There's not a lot of people that would admit that. So the humbleness that you just used, to me, that's really refreshing, I guess, put it that way. So that's pretty cool. Just Thanks. Start off with that. My background, I guess, let me start there. So I'm going to give you the Cliff's Notes version of this, but I'm from a small town in Minnesota. You'll pick up the accent. It's pretty thick, but it's
I can hear it in Minnesota. Minnesota.
It's about 400 people, Southwest Minnesota. It's called Round Lake. Yeah. And then I hovered around a little bit, went to a couple colleges, and then I ended up going to Mankato, which is, probably 150,000 people. Then moved up to, 20 years ago, I suppose, at least. 25, and then moved up to Minneapolis. So I live right outside of Minneapolis. And I'll kind of tell you how I got to Southwestern of all things. I started my career in sales at Lifetime Fitness. And really what happened is my boss came in and put a stack of papers on my desk and he said, call all these people. And I think you know what I'm talking about, where there's people out there, salespeople, that will make phone calls and some that just kind of don't. And I realized that the only way I'm going to get to where I want to be is if I do the activity that you need to do, because that's the way you, I guess in my eyes, the way you learn, the way you develop, the way you figure out what you need help with, all those types of things. We'll come back to all that. But from there, I did pretty well at Lifetime. I was there for about 1.5 to 2 years. And then I started chasing the title. And I'll just say it, the ego got the best of me. So I went to the YMCA as a sales director. I was there for about 1.5 to 2 years. I'll come back to that too. I went to Sprint as a district manager. So I had about 7 stores around the cities. And then I went to Robert Half International as a recruiter, that type of thing. Got my MBA along the way, thinking, well, if I have my MBA, somebody's got to pay me, that type of thing. Not realizing that it's the hard work that'll pay you, not the title and stuff behind your name. And I was at the YMCA, and my executive director there looked at me across the desk and he said, Brent, sometimes the best salespeople don't always make the best leaders. And that's where the ego got me, because about a day later, I quit. Because I asked him, who are you? Well, I didn't ask him. I asked him in my mind, who are you to say that to me? But looking back on it now, he was right. I had a lot of growing to do, a lot of developing to do, and I didn't know, because you don't know what you don't know. And I think that's part of this, even what you just said, the humbleness in you and what you, like, that's a leader. That's how you develop people, is we don't know it all. We're not supposed to. And I've been at Southwestern now for now it's about 11 years. February will be 11 years. And just the things that it's the product of the people you surround yourself with and the people you learn from and the things that you do and development and ups and downs and all these different things that truly make us, I wholeheartedly believe that. That's not just cliche saying it, make us who we are and help us persevere through some of the things that don't always go the way we want to. So that's kind of how the evolution happened, I guess. Put it that
And
way.
where you are now, yeah. And just to preface, guys, I mean, Brent's background is in sales, right? But he's really about inspiring us to reinvent or to find what's keeping us from hitting that milestone or that goal, whatever it is, right? So the purpose today is to get into that mind and pull out what it will take for any of us. And it's probably just that little nugget. It might be something different for me or you or whatever, but I have every confidence that we're going to get something that will improve upon whatever's lacking, whatever we're missing over here. Okay, so you said a couple things. First of all, the Lifetime thing, I got to tell you. So we just got one. I'm in Portland. For anybody that doesn't know, I'm in Portland, Oregon. We just got one here. And if you don't have one in your area, it's amazing. I mean, it's amazing. Those have been around for a while too.
Oh yeah, they started, the one I worked at was the first big box.
Wow.
Is what they call them, kind of like yours, I'm guessing, because it's new. And I remember same thing, walking in there and going, holy crap, like this is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's hard to not get motivated when you walk in there.
No kidding. I almost signed up too. I have a gym in my house, so I'm a little bit lazy that way, is right there. But I bet I would get something out of it if I went, I took the time to go. It was very cool. The other thing that you said, I was taking notes when you were talking, is you had mentioned getting out of your comfort zone and being willing to do the things that others just won't in success, right? In ways in which we find success is just simply, getting on the phone. So for, the people that are listening here today and the investors, sometimes you have to get out of your comfort zone. That was what I took away from what you said there. And probably why you reached the pinnacles that you reach is because you were willing to do those things that others they just won't. People don't like being uncomfortable. Right? I don't necessarily love it, but I do it because I know what it'll produce. Yeah, that just resonated with me. Okay, here's my next question. So I was talking initially about consistency. And this is where I feel like I'm really falling off right now is in my consistency, whether it be with my daily routine, my workouts, right? I'm still getting them in, but it's not just that easy, just do it, right? I've got to really, really force myself to get out there and do it. So how can you shape or help me or anybody that's listening? How do we stay consistent after 52 years of gutting it out? What tools have you come up with or developed that I can use to keep that engine going, that consistency? Because I think that's key.
Ooh, first, I would tell you again, you or anybody else that is doing it, I'm going to commend you on that as well. Just because when you look at you're working out and you're doing all these things, you're doing it. You're still getting up, you're still putting the work in, you're still doing those types of things. So you've created this habit of making it happen. You're smart enough to be dumb enough not to have to think about it. It's just something you do. But I do think, and this goes back to, it's funny that we talked a little bit about Tony Robbins before we got on here. I read his book. I think it's the Awaken the Giant Within or something of that nature. And he talks about being pushed and pulled. And there's things that push us. So let's take this as a goal, for instance. There's really three things that drive us, if you will. Three reasons why we do what we do. And the first one is we're driven by money. But eventually we have the house, the car, the boat, like we have the stuff. So money doesn't drive us anymore. It almost, when we look at our bank account, it holds us back because we can pay our bills and we can take the vacations or we can do the stuff. And that's where I see a lot of upper level, higher level producers. They get to a point where I'm good, man. Things are going really well. And you don't strive for that. But then there's number two that I feel like some of us live under. We're driven by guilt. And that can be student loan debt, house debt, credit card debt. We got ourselves in some situation that we need to get out of. So how do we get past that? But then there's the flip side of guilt. Let's say we're busy being busy. We are constantly thinking about work, that thing that fell off, that thing we needed to do, that thing we needed to accomplish, whatever it is, and we're not present. We're not where our hands are at. But then I feel like there's number three. And that's where most of us fall under. And this goes back to what you were talking about. We're driven by dreams, things we want to accomplish, places we want to go. Maybe it's a legacy. And I'm not talking about building a business and all that, but maybe it's just like our kids are watching us. People are watching us and they're going to do, call it this, half of what you do right, twice what you do wrong. So if you're letting yourself off the hook, if you're not doing some of these things, they're not going to do it. So we're driven by dreams. And the question is, I'm going to go back to goals and vision and that type of thing, because I know that's kind of the topic for today. I go into and I speak, we do workshops where I come in at a team, anywhere from 3 to 5 people, let's say 50. And the only reason I tell you that is because when I ask how many of you have your goals written down, it's natural to have maybe 10% of the room. Because I'll ask, how many of you in here, if I asked to see your goals, you could show me right now?
Actually written down, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's maybe 10% of that room, which again, it goes back to you don't know what you don't know, but something happens when you write your goals down. It's the motivation, it's the measurement. It's we even things like we struggle at times with time management or self-management, but this helps us understand what we're striving for and things that we want to accomplish, or even into, you already touched on things like personal growth. Maybe I just want to listen to podcasts. Maybe I want to read 12 books this year, 50, whatever it is. But if we don't have a goal around it, it's really hard to strive for something that we just say, well, I have it in my head. It doesn't really work that way. That kind of answers your question.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think that the actual activity of writing it down is powerful and probably crucial to making sure that you check them off. But let's go back to the consistency. I think that you need to have that in mind, what the goals are, so that your daily activity, right, is you got to have that right here on the side or on the refrigerator, right? I have friends, and I've done it too, where you have that picture. There's a picture, right? I don't need to go into any detail, but there's a picture on the refrigerator that if it's 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night, is probably going to keep me from opening it and getting, the scoop of ice cream or something before bed. There's, that visual aid that tells me, okay, and then going into my consistency, I've got to keep it consistent, or if not, I'm never going to get there. So if there was one thing that you could say, that you could bring to the table about consistency and what keeps you there in that space, because it's hard, right? Consistency is hard. In fact, I bet most people would say that consistency in meeting their goals and what it is they have to do every single day. And this is true for investors that want to build that wealth, right? So this is true for anybody, whatever their goal is. Consistency and almost redundancy is huge. It's been huge for me. So if there was one thing that you would say that we have to do, or that we could use as a tool to maintain that consistency, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a big question. What I would say, because here's the thing, we can create good habits and we can create bad habits.
Mm-hmm.
Because consistency consists of, what you're really saying here is not consistency and bad habits or getting away from it. That even when you let yourself off the hook, that doesn't mean it goes by the wayside. And so many of us let ourselves off because it takes, 21, 30 days, whatever it is, to create a habit.
Build a habit, right.
Yeah. But it takes one day to break that habit. And if we let ourselves consistently break that habit, that's why we say one day, because if we let ourselves off the hook, I'll give you an example. Like, I get up every morning at 5 a.m. and work out. This morning, it was 21 degrees outside, and I went out and ran. Yeah. And it doesn't matter if it's 21, if it's 81, or I do it when it's -10. And the reason I tell you that, because when you do the hard stuff, this other stuff becomes a lot easier.
Yeah.
If you heard my bio, there's a reason why I run marathon, ultra, climb a mountain, make 100 phone calls in a day, just because then when you run 4 miles, or you get up at 5, or you make 10 phone calls, that's the consistency factor. It's creating this normalcy that we just do. And it's to take it to a technical space, we plan it on our calendar. So if Caeli's supposed to get back to 5 or 10 people, or Brent has an open space on his calendar, I'm not emailing, I'm not texting, I'm not doing all of those things. I know that that's my time, that I'm very consistent in doing the things that's going to drive my business.
Yeah.
And I do think that's where a lot of us fall off, is we don't lean into it. It goes back to what you said about being comfortable.
Well, and do you feel like too that when you miss, if you have your roadmap, right, and these are the things that you're consistently doing every day to make sure that you meet the goal, whatever it is that you've set for yourself, if you fall off one day, there's this self-defeatist, right, this self-fulfilling prophecy that if I miss a day, I've already missed the day, I can just, I can have this cheesecake today, whatever, right? And it starts to snowball, and then it's like whatever, and then getting back into it. So for me, this is the tool that I use, because I've done that. I do it, right, where I'll be doing great, and then I'll fall off, and then I this mentality, this inner voice just starts to get at me, and then it's been 2 days or 3 days or a week or months or whatever. And I'll use working out, because that's a big one for everybody. But I've done it enough times that I know that the brutal claw your way back out of that and get back to where you were or want to be is so freaking unbearably hard. I keep that built in my mind, so that even if I fall off, I'm not saying I'm not going to fall off. Of course I'm going to fall off, but I'll never let it get to that point where it's going to be so difficult, because I've trained myself to believe that at one point, as I get older, as I start to age, I won't be able to rebound or come back. So that kind of motivates me to keep up with that, that grind. Anyway, okay, we can get off of that. We can move on to something else. Did you have
I'll touch
something?
on that for a second though.
Yeah.
One of the things I did way back, so let's talk about working out, because maybe it's not just work and all that kind of stuff. I made a
But the
rule.
principles are the same.
Yeah.
Right.
Made a rule with myself when I was 23 years old that I will never take more than 2 days off in a row. Never. And whether it's traveling, whether it's vacation, whether it's holidays, whatever it is, I think the choices, and that's the thing that I would say, the choice. We have a choice every day. We either choose to do something or choose to not do it. And if you're choosing to not do it enough times, think about how much harder it is to then try to do it again, because it's exactly what you just said. We've all seen the memes or the videos, pick your hard. Is it harder to start all the time, or is it harder to actually get up and do it, type of thing? And that's where consistency comes into play. Is not, even if you take a day or two off, you don't let that totally sidetrack you. And it doesn't have to be, I look at it like this: if I don't work out, right, let's say I haven't worked out for 20 years, go out of your house and walk a block and walk back.
Yeah. You got to take a first step in.
Yeah. Walk 2 blocks and walk 2 blocks back, and just kind of build off that. That's all you have to do, and watch what happens to your life. It's changes everything. So yeah,
it's as simple as that. It's funny. It's simple, but it's hard, right? For a lot of people.
it's a good way to put it.
It's simple,
Yeah.
but the execution is hard. But if you just get outside of your own head and you do it, it's not as hard as you make it in your head. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about preparation, right? So preparation for success, you got to take some time and start planting the seeds, as I call it, and preparing. Do you have systems or tools that you use to kind of outline what your accomplishments or goals are going to be?
Yeah, I have a couple things. So when you look at goals, so you touched on 2 things there. You asked about prepping, and then you asked about goals. So in my world, that's kind of 2 different things. So every year, at the end of the year, I take a day and I plan. And what I didn't used to do that. I started this about 3 years ago when I got a coach, put it that way. And I plan my next year of where my business is going to come from, the goals that I want to achieve, the things that I want to do, and they are personal and they are professional. So I write down about 15. Doesn't mean it. And the reason I say about is because you might write down 12. Don't hang on to it because I said 15. I take that whole day and then I break down, I reverse engineer what are the things that I need to do to get to where I want to go. So let's say I am a loan officer, right? And I want to do 3 million a month, 4 million, 10 million, whatever it is. What are the steps that I need to take, the events I need to do? Who do I need to build relationships with? Who are my centers of influence? Where am I going to go to build this? Now we take those goals and we break them down. So that's one of the things I do is I take a planning day. Now on my planning day, the other thing I do is at the end of every week. So you asked about a process I have at 3 o'clock every Friday afternoon. I look at my next week, and I know it can be tedious. I get it, but this is consistency. Sometimes it is tedious. You go hour by hour, day by day, and you look at what you're doing and you plan the things that you need to do. And what do I mean by that? Who am I going to talk to? Who do I need to get back to? What's my business development? What are the things that I need to go to? What time am I going to be home? What time am I going to work out? All these types of things. So if we don't do that, life has a way of pulling on us, which is a lot of times why we don't do the things that we should do, because it's simply not planned on our calendar. And then that 2-hour block comes up and you kind of Facebook and you kind of LinkedIn and you kind of call 1 or 2 people and you kind of, and that's why we hover. I could break down probably 20 things that when you write down your goals, because you even talked about having a vision board. That's really what that picture on your fridge is. That's a vision board. It's something that pulls us to where we want to go. That can be a house, car, family, vacation. Doesn't matter what it is. It's the life that you want to live. Maybe you're not in it today, but it's things that we're striving for. And if you have not created a vision board, which lives into your goals, I would encourage you to do that. And that's simply that's what I do on that planning day is I take a half hour to an hour and I just write down everything in the next year, 3 years, 5 years that I want to accomplish or things that I want to do. It could be, I want to go to the Great Wall of China, right? Or I want to see pyramids, right? That type of stuff. It's going to happen eventually. What are those things that are truly important to you? Because when you make an emotional, hear me here for a second. This is the one thing I wanted to hopefully take away. Goals are one thing. We can write down things. There's a couple in there that you will make an emotional attachment to. Things that are uber important to you. When you make an attachment to something, that's when you do it when you're tired, when you do it when you don't feel like it, when you're uncomfortable, when you push through something, because the payoff of that is stronger than not doing it. If you know what I mean by that.
Yeah, fear's a big motivation, or yeah,
man,
I totally agree.
Attachment, for sure.
You know, I want to, as it relates to real estate investors, right, which is our audience today. So here's what I do, guys. When I know what the, let's say the milestone that I want to meet, let's just go big picture and say, I want to be financially independent from the need to have a W-2 job in 5 years. Okay. I start with that. And then as Brent just said, reverse engineer what we're talking about and tangibly, what is it going to take? So I take the baseline averages. I know that, you know, real estate investing for my particular model of single family residence on a long-term basis, let's say that the average cash flow right now in today's rate environment and the averages of taxes and insurance and rents and blah, 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 national averages, you have access to that data right here. I know it. So figure figure all of those details out and say, okay, I need this much money to be financially solvent and free of X in 5 years, 10 years, 3 years, 7 years, whatever it is. And then work it backwards. How many properties do I need to identify in a month or in 12 months? What types of properties do those need to be? If I just stick with this particular medium of investing, single family residence on a long-term rental, how long is it going to take me if I know that this is the model of cash flow on this property? What if I were to switch it up and bring in a 2 to 4 unit property? Or maybe we're going to look at some short-term properties that will yield some slightly higher returns. Might have more risk, right? Am I willing to take that on? But my point is that if you were to forecast out exactly where you want to be and in what period of time you want to be in, to Brent's point, what I would do with that is I would get real granular. I would say, okay, I want to be making $10,000 a month. Okay, I know that I need to make this many calls. I need this kind of conversion. And then just start tweaking it from there. And actually throughout the day, gut check, am I doing what I should be doing that's going to get me through today and then this week and then this month that I'll be able to hit that milestone? So those are some of the things that I will do. And I don't know, it's kind of to your point, but preparedness comes from putting that shit on paper, right? If you don't have it somewhere, because I do get lost in the day-to-day, right? I got my head down. I kind of live in a vacuum sometimes, and I don't look up a lot. I'm usually just kind of in that tunnel vision and focused. And if I didn't have something tangible over here that I could revert back to and bring me back into, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing right now so that I get here? Because what happens to me otherwise is that I'll waste 3 months or 6 months or whatever it is, and I'll be nowhere near closer to what my initial goal was at the beginning of the onset of whatever that was, right? In fact, maybe I'll be further behind. So I think that you're right. It's very, very important to set up a schematic, a vision board, so that everybody has something to use from, and then take that, reverse engineer it, and actually be applicably doing some of the things every day. And maybe it's not possible to do it every day. Maybe it's every week, but you have to be your own warden and be gut checking yourself along the way to make sure that you're on that same path, right? Would that be a good way in which you would?
Oh, for sure. Here's the one thing. Everything you said there is spot on. The one thing I would take that a little step further is when you touched on, if you want to invest and you want this type of property or you want this, at some point, there are people out there that they don't know. They don't know what to do or how to do it. So what our natural tendency is to shut down and put it off, and I'll get to it later. What I'm going to tell you is ask for help.
Yeah.
Call somebody like you or you and say, hey, this is what I want to do. This is the money I want to make. What do I need to do to get to that point?
Yeah.
And you can break that down for them and help them get to that. And the reason I know that, I've been guilty of it.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know where to start, so I'm not going to start. I'll put it off because I don't know. We do that. That's keeping us safe.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing I would do is, I don't want to call it ego, but it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to not know everything. Check that. Take the tool card out of your pocket, right? Don't worry. Yeah.
I agree. So the moral of that story is that there is a plethora of information and people out there that are information abundance and not scarcity in real estate, guys. You probably know most of them, right? There's a lot of free podcasts. We are a good resource for that stuff. You know that. Definitely, if you don't know it, ask. I feel good that our clients, a lot of the times they will. And for those that are listening to this, that just don't think that, you know, your question is valid or it's a dumb, whatever, it doesn't even matter. If you're questioning whether or not to ask Ridge, you should be asking, because I promise you, it's relatable, and we should have answers. And if we don't, we'll find them for you. Anyway, yeah, that's a good point.
Don't let the fact that you might think you look stupid or feel stupid or awkward, or don't let that hold you back.
No kidding.
From you want to live. That's what we're.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, what else do I have here? What time is it? We'll just do a couple more, okay? Unless you've got, if you've got something that you wanted to just roll with, you do it, okay? You don't have to. Okay, all right. Oh, here's a good one. What drives you, Brent?
Oh man, it's not any one thing. I'll tell you that, but I will take you back. Ooh, this story's going to get me a little bit. Yeah. When I first started here, I was about 6 months in, and I was a single dad. My son and I went down to a carnival. It's called Lake City, Minnesota. It's down in the big part of the Mississippi River, that kind of thing. And we've all been to those small town carnivals where they have the bumper cars and the roller coasters and the rickety old Ferris wheel and all that kind of stuff. And we walked uptown on a Saturday morning, and we were walking by the pitching game. And Jack sees it. He's 6 years old at the time. And he says, Dad, please, can I play this game? And in my pocket, I remember this like it was yesterday. I saw the sign off in the distance right beside it that said 3 balls, $5. And in my pocket, I had $23. And I'm talking $23 to my name. Because my house was up for short sale. I was actually driving my brother's Ford Ranger because he loaned it to me. I didn't have a car. I couldn't, a lot of times, like I wasn't so far down, but I was charging things because I had a credit card, but I had no money in the bank. And I ended up paying for the game. Fast forward, we got home that Sunday night. Walked in the house, walked downstairs, and I sat my stuff down and I sat at my desk. And I just sat there numb. And I pulled out a Post-it and I wrote on it, how does it feel? Cool. Reason I tell you that is because that's ultimately what drives me. Is I never wanted to have that feeling again of not being able to pay $5 for my son to be able to play a pitching game at a carnival. And if that was my fault, like if you ever failed your kids, you've ever failed your family, that was on me, man. That wasn't his fault. So I looked at the future and thought, what if he can't play soccer and baseball and basketball and whatever he wanted to do? Didn't matter. what if I couldn't do vacations and give him experiences and help him live his life? And that's kind of the vision that I look around. I have my kids' pictures and a vision board and books and all these like drawings and these, that's what drives me. Is if I don't feel like making a phone call, yeah, man, there's a picture staring me in the
That
face.
gets easy, real easy, quick.
Yeah. That's consistency. There's
Wow.
there's things there that will drive you. You just have to look for it. It's right in front of you.
I agree. I know I would say the majority of people are not motivated by fear, right? In work and in business, that's been my experience. Most people, the more you press, I would say most people, the more fear, the more they may recoil. But that's not the same necessarily as pain and failure, right? Pain and failure. I have a question for you. So I'm sure that's not the first time you've told that story. When you're in a room of people that you're coaching or training or whatever, and that one comes up, do you feel the energy in the room change where you've now gotten everyone's attention? I felt myself sitting up and wanting to hear what you had to say, because I suspect that every one of us has something like that we can absolutely connect and resonate to, that draws out that same emotion. That now that's so we've been talking for whatever 45 minutes or whatever. That's what I'm going to take away from this. That's what I needed to hear today for me, is to be able to recall some of that stuff, whatever it is, because we all got it. That will continue to, maybe I'm just too far removed from something like that. However, to have to go back and feel, if I were to put myself in some of those places that I have been in, real pain, real angst, real failure, and try to put myself back in that space, that'll motivate the shit out of me.
Yep. There you go.
Wow.
And it does. That's what I mean by it's there's instances in our life, we all have them. Every single one of us have them, where it's the old adage of there's no change without pain.
Yeah.
And when you feel that pain at times, like I look at a picture of my kids right here, and they're at another broke story, I guess, because it was kind of the same time frame. Is we were at a pool and it cost $8 for each one of them to get in the pool. And I had to think about if I could go to the pool or not.
Yeah.
Little stuff like that.
Man.
The reminders are there. We just have to be intentional about looking for it. And it will drive you. I promise you that. It will pull. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you guys are making your goals and your list, make another list, right? Make another, take that action and actually write the list of things in your life that have happened. And you can just put a buzzword there that'll recall you. It'll take you right back to that place and time where you can smell it and feel it and hear it and taste it, and know that that's the one that you want to avoid at all costs. That's a good one. I like that. I'm gonna write some shit down on that one. Okay, let's see. Well, listen, I think this is great. I mean, we've been on for 45 minutes. I just like the camaraderie and the talking back and forth, man, and just to have someone that you can listen to, that has their own experiences and feed off of that, and it just kind of gives you that renewed sense of inspiration.
Sometimes you just need to listen to people. Here's an analogy for you. My wife taught me this. If you want to write down a SUAL, and it's called shut up and listen. If you ask a question, just listen, and people, you'll feel it, man. You will, for sure. And it only helps you.
I appreciate that. And so I feel like I do that every day, right? I'm listening, but it's more, right. It's more focused in the space. I need to open up a little bit and find other avenues of discussion that can bring me back into the fold where I feel inspired and I want to set new goals for myself. And I've got more things, and because I know I've got more things to do. I'm just like I said at the top of the hour or a half hour, I've just been feeling stuck. So this is a good springboard for me. I really, really appreciate you being here, guys. Was there anything else that you would have covered in any of this that we just didn't dig into?
The only thing I would leave you with is exactly what you said is go to a I don't know, maybe a coffee shop in your basement, go to a quiet spot, open a notebook and write down your goals. Write down the things you really want to do. And then write down what you said as well. Some of those emotional things, like there's big things, you challenge yourself a little bit. Think a little bit bigger here. Like there's things I never thought I could do. And somebody asked me to do them. I'm just like, all right, I'll figure it out. You just figure it out.
You do figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. There you go.
I agree. Ron, I'm looking at a comment here. Hell yeah, dude. He says sleeping indoors and eating every day is a hell of a motivator.
That helps too.
Yeah. Sleep and food, shelter and food. Let's just put that on our list. Good one. All right. So if anybody wanted to get in touch with you and talk about coaching or training or the things that are in your tool belt that they could access, how would they do that?
I will give you my phone number and my email address. How about that? So my phone number, pretty simple, 507-382-7641. And you can text me anytime, even if you just want to talk about goals or help with reverse engineering them. I will absolutely make time for you. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about. I just love that. And then my email address is pretty simple. It's just B as in Brent, Widman, WIDMAN, so Widman at, and this is where it's long, but it's easy, Southwestern Consulting.com.
It's kind of like Ridge Lending Group. It's
same damn thing. Yep, absolutely.
And you actually, I've totally failed. So you have this 30-minute business plan training or coaching, right? That I probably should have talked about that at the top of the hour. Sure. Do you want to just touch on what that is before we wrap up?
Basically what it is, if you reach out to me, or when you reach out to me, let's call it that, we can take a half hour, 45 minutes, and we can go through a business action plan to see what are the things like you talked about. Maybe I am becoming not complacent, but I'm kind of stuck because I think there's a difference between both. We got to the point where we're like, what do I do next? Complacency is just more, I'm good. But if you're in a spot where, how do I get to those goals? What do I really want? Like, I'm going to dig in on you and figure out what it is that you truly want to do. And again, I'll say this, no strings attached, anything like that. Simply just, I'll help you figure it out. Put it that way. So yeah. We can absolutely set that up for sure.
Very cool. Thank you. I appreciate that, Brent. Okay, gang, anybody have any final thoughts or questions? I want to make sure to give you a minute to ask. It could be about this, hopefully, or anything you wanted to share that might be useful to anybody else that's here with us today or listening later. Go ahead and put it in the chat, or if you've got something else that you want to discuss, mortgage related, that would be fine too. I may just offer this thought. I'll leave you with this thought. Well, you maybe decide if you want to participate here. Our buddy Jerome and his pals, the Feds are meeting tomorrow. It is widely anticipated that they will not be raising the Fed fund rate again tomorrow. The markets have already predicted this. So anything related to that Fed fund rate not moving, that's already been accounted for in the long-term mortgage rates. However, the tone of what Mr. Powell says to us tomorrow could potentially move markets one way or the other. A lot of people are feeling like we are on the home stretch of where high interest rates have been. Some people are even talking about March of 24 is when we'll see our first rate reduction. He did say leading up to tomorrow's meeting is that what were his words? Something to the effect that it's way premature to have any real confidence in rate reductions at this point. So we'll see what happens, gang. If you have any questions, you need us for anything, what is it, Caeli? Take us home, baby.
Any questions or need us for anything, email us at info@ridgelendinggroup.com or call us at 855-747-4343. And just to go back to what Caeli mentioned, the next live event or really pre-recorded podcast is going to be coming out on December 26th. And Caeli's going to be talking about risk management and understanding of non-owner occupied financing. So definitely check your inbox for that, or it will be available on our YouTube page or anywhere that you get your podcasts.
Thank you, Ms. Caeli. Hey, gang, happy holidays to you all. Whatever your predilection is, I wish you and your families a very safe and happy holiday season. And you'll be seeing my mug on the 26th if you join in or tune in for that. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the new year. Brent, you the man. Thank you for doing
Thank
this.
you. Have a great
Okay.
day.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Care.